want you to see my perfume bottle collection. We're going downstairs, but the tour begins downstairs. Going down the stairs, and at the foot of the stairs we encounter the first item, which is a Coty store display for the scent Muse. And across from her is my wonderful dollhouse my husband made for me. Each of the little items in this dollhouse is perfume related, and it goes from the attic to the nursery and the bedroom, down to the living room, the bar, outside on the patio, and then in the music room. We're entering now into the museum part with all the display cases. Obviously, with this volume, you're going to get a quick once-over, and then we're going to go close and look more closely at some areas. The first vitrine, or display unit. We're going to open it up and look at it by shelf. Okay, on the left are various windmills and eggs. And then on the other side are my wonderful, wonderful top shelf. There are all the Hud nuts. Then below that are what I call the black glass area. Then getting into French commercials. And then we're getting into the green and the red glass area. And on the other side, again, commercials. On the very bottom shelf are all the novelty items. Bottom two shelves, sorry. Now we're looking to the left of and these are wall units. This is all porcelains. A lot of them are the different animals or some atomizers. This is a mixed bag, shall we say. But mostly animals, crown tops. And below them we're going into porcelain Germans. These are right underneath that is a shelf unit that is all solids, mostly Corday. And below that are the different porcelains. And a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Watches, for example. Now we're going over looking at the Salvador Dali store banner. And underneath that is a very special collection that I just dearly love, which are all my Valentines and hearts. Very well consistent with the color, you can see. Now we're going over to the next display case, which shows my great love of figurals. This side are many, many figurals on the upper left. On the other side there on the right are Elizabeth Arden. Then we're going down again into more clear glass figurals, and then into the crown tops, most of the porcelains. As you see, the crown tops are rather overcrowded, shall we say. Then we're getting down into the very bottom, which is all in the bottom there is Guerlain. Then we're going over here. This is the Prince Machiavelli store wall display. And you'll say, well, where's all these are all very nice, but where's the things that they're most famous for? This is, all Prince Machiavelli, whoopie wow, and where's all the little colored crowns? Well, they're off to the side. They have their own little unit. We go black, red, milk glass, blue, green, and then the clear. Now this is the Italian section. We're going to talk more. This is the Italian section of my collection. One of the reasons I love Italian perfumes is because they're so great, of course, but arguably they are the oldest existing perfume companies in the world. The French would say different, but I believe that the Italians hold that honor. And here we have an example that shows how wonderful these obscure Italian perfumes can be. This is for the Molnar company. They had a single example. And it opens like a little stage presentation. There's the perfume in cobalt blue and milk glass stopper. The name of the perfume is Sans Nom. Sans Nom is rather difficult to translate into English, but it means having no name or nameless. Or it could also be superb beyond all names, if you want to look at it that way. Nothing more known about the Molnar company, except that it's Italian. Give you one other example of why Italian perfumes are so wonderful. This is for the Jean Viemme company, Giviemme. And Jean Viemme hired some really high-end designers. In this particular case, this is Murano glass. And, according to the little tag, Carlo Scarpa of the Vanini company, Murano, is the designer of this bottle. You can see the little tiny, tiny blossoms are inset actually in the glass, and then the stopper is this giant piece of milk glass blossom. Just dynamic and wonderful. And below the Italians is the shoe display. And boy, are there a lot of perfume shoes, as I came to find out. Below that, in this particular display unit, are all the early American press glass in the back with some of the solids. Now we're moving over to the case that my husband built. On the top, we have the Guerlain store display and then a few other figural. The top shelf, these are mostly French and bicolored glass. So the top shelf is a lot of milk glass items. The second shelf, as you see, is a lot of blue glass. Then we're moving on down. We get into the green area, some of the really high-end, wonderful green things. And then this is the gold shelf. And then at the bottom is the pearls, all the different pearls, and a few other. I love this particular vitrine case. My husband built it for me and put the mirrors in the back. And he thought I would never be able to fill it up, but he was wrong. Here is Christmas 2020, my gift from my husband. This is an interesting bottle. There's very little known about it and very few examples exist, but upon research it comes to find out that it was done for 3 very obscure companies, just a few examples each. One of the reasons this is important is it's a Georges Chevalier Baccarat design. You can see the beautiful gilding on it. Now, of the 3 bottles that this was done for, the De Musette company is one, and this is, by the way, from 1925. Another example is for the Parfume company. Again, very little known about them. The third example just turned up the other day, and it's shown in the Houston Museum of Fine Arts in the collection there. And that particular example is for the Agnes company, and it's called Rive de, well, I can't spit out the name of it. But anyway, it's in the Museum of Fine Arts, and there's the third example. This little small case is mostly miniatures, and this works very well because of the small size of them. Now we're going up beyond the tablecloth for Elizabeth Taylor, used in stores. Now we're getting over to the go round machine that's for all my powders. My powders were collected, although this is not a Revlon display it's in. This will show and go around and have a little few words on that. The powders were collected because I love the artwork on top, the beautiful femme, the lovely ladies, the butterflies, it's just, so many of them are just tiny little works of art you could hold in your hand. And the thing that's wonderful about it is how ephemeral they were. Evanescent is another word that comes to mind when you look at some of these powders. Many of them don't exist in very many examples today because of that. Now moving on beyond the powders, we look at the Guerlain store banner. And of course, immediately under the Guerlain store banner for Shalimar is the Shalimar Factice, along with a few other Shalimars. And also Elizabeth Taylor's diamonds, a few of those, different assorted sizes of those. Now we're going over to the case that's opposite, looking down that case. And then we're going to open the doors and discuss what's there. Okay, that's Chanel, number 5, or d'Orsay, and a few other like that. This is the Lalique shelf. Above that is the Russian shelf, mostly specializing in Tsaristic bottles, Tsaristic period. Then we go up to the tiny little various novelties. This is kind of an assorted shelf. And the Rick-Sickers are just immediately above, I think. Yeah, this is Rick-Sickers and Eau de Cologne, 4711, that type of item. Then the top shelf, this is all American. American atomizers, Dubin, the like of that. The other side is, as it says, Caron. The shelf is Caron. Below that, we have all the transportation-related items. This one is called La Poupée Parisienne, the Parisian doll. This is for the Favolas Company of France. It was a very small but high-end and novelty company, the whole span, and they used the Rochambeau Company to import into the United States. To my knowledge, this is the first time this has ever been shown in the box. The next shelf down in the display is all the Egyptians. I say all because each and every one is a triumph to acquire an Egyptian design bottle. And of course the Rochambeaus are also in the front there. And Elephant Bob, we've got to mention Elephant Bob. Then we get into the colored glass. A lot of this is crystal non-C, and you see there all the colors there. Now we're moving to another display unit. Again, we'll look at them very quickly and then go back and look at each shelf for a few words on each shelf. Here we have Dali. The shelf immediately above it is what I call my library of books, perfume books. Then we're getting into the Asian or Oriental design and a few Vantines, which is carried on. This is more of the more complete Vantines section. Vantines is a rather large element in my collection. And then the very top shelf, again, Vantines. And the very top shelf is at Figuero's, the Figuero's being a little larger. This particular perfume bottle came from the top shelf here. We're going to hold it like this because I was too hard to get it down again. This is called the aquarium bottle. If you can look, you can see there's a little fish floating around in it, and it would have floated in the perfume. This is from the Bean and Veil Company, an American company, from 1889. This is the first appearance in actuality of this bottle that I know of. It is documented in the Revy book on page 372. And there is a label at the top saying Bean and Veil Aquarium Bottle. This shows the funky new Victorians' love of the novelties, this little bottle. Well, as you know, I love the Asian and the Oriental design. I love Vantines, but in this case, this is a non-Vantines Oriental design. This is, I'm going to probably not be able to pronounce this very adequately, the Tin Huang Company. It's a frosted glass bottle, has the Oriental designing. It's sitting on the little wooden base. It's from about 1917. The thing that, well, beyond that, that's not very exciting, but the thing that lifts it is the fact it has a mutton fat jade charm hanging from it. And that makes it just really very special and unusual and collectible. The top of this cabinet is mostly porcelain Figuero's. The second shelf is more of the Vantines collection, and the third shelf is yet more Vantines. Got a lot of Vantines. Love all those. The next shelf is, gee, more Vantines. And we get down to the next shelf, and this is my boxes waiting for perfume bottle additions. And the very bottom is a few factice and other unusual items. Now we're moving away from that particular cabinet over to a vitrine, an open vitrine that is lay-down perfumes, mostly antique, starting in the upper left, going to the lower right. They are roughly chronological. As you see, there's numerous little bottles. Most of them, the only category that unites them is their size. Now we're going into the section that is early American. They're called pungents, seahorse bottles. More antique perfumes, various. Then we're going in, this is a Dieppe Ivory. And then these are, again, small Victorian clear glass. Lastly, into the rings and change case, again, mostly Victorian. Now, moving away from the open display case, we're going over into the section that is along the wall, various boxed items. Then looking up, this is a piece of original artwork. Now we're going over to the section that is the glass cased, that is Victorian in style, up above the Lazelle's fan that held perfume bottles in the store. Now the top shelf, Rixickers and Victorian. Now down to the various cases. Each shelf is complete with all sorts of different Victorian items, mostly roughly by color of glass. Milk glass, blue, you'll see now going into the blues, opalines, and now into the clear and the gold. And the very bottom is atomizers. This vitrine is mostly Victorian and a few atomizers in the bottom. This little example here is rather interesting. This is the one and only time I ever had a professional appraisal done, and I'm certainly glad I did because I would have never figured out what this was. This is part of the Herond Porcelain Manufacture Company. This is the Fisher part, and apparently they went into business and they went out of business rather quickly. This was Fisher F. Kilmos, and this is in the Couche-Bas pattern. And when I had it appraised, what the fellow told me was, geez, he really had to work hard to find information about it, and he couldn't find any other really comparable examples. It's quite rare, but you will notice the way the flower is done and the stopper, that other companies, porcelain companies, picked up this idea and reproduced it. This was, though, the first example, and it has all the little Moriarty work. Now we're moving over against the wall. These are all the miniatures, the tiny sample perfumes that are often given away, sometimes at our conventions. Now below that is a case that is powders and rouges and other items of that similar nature, again, mostly by size and graphic interest. This is a plate done for the Elizabeth Arden, and below the plate is the Elizabeth Arden Colonial Lady, and a few other. This is all Elizabeth Arden porcelains. We're going to see the Egyptian line in the other room. I have that complete. Now we're looking at accordion doors to a closet, and as you see in just a minute, it's going to open, and boy, what do we got here? More perfumes. Richard Hudnut, for example. A lot of Richard Hudnut, and a lot of other boxed, not so exciting sometimes, boxed items, various and sundry, tinies. This is the figural section. A lot of figurals you'll see. There's the tapping. Some stand out, just jump out at you. There's the wooden section. That means they're simply all the bottles that are in wooden containers. And then there's the Palmer's point of purchase display signs from 1948. Again, more wooden items. These are almost all turned on the lathe items. Again, the Palmer's. Moving around, these again are tiny, just tiny bottles. United by company, for example, that's the Rocher on the top shelf, all Rocher. Yves Rocher, that is. Not Rochas. But tiny boxed, the various boxed. On this other side, far side of the closet, this is a type cabinet is what it's called. And they work very well for the little tiny minis. Moving down to the cats and the bear section of the collection. And then over to perfume solids. These are all the necklaces. Other types of perfume jewelry are in another area. Again, more perfume solid necklaces. They are very easy to display and hang up, as you see, so they become quite a interesting looking collection. One of my special loves in collecting is Richard Hudnut, who is an American perfumer. These boxed sets come from deep storage because they're so large, but I did want to show them. In particular, this is a Jamais, that's the name of the scent, for Richard Hudnut. It came out, according to the ad, which is stored a copy inside the box to help me remember, 1938. It is a velvet box with jewels on top. Inside we have the Jamais powder, the sachet, the cologne, and the perfume. It was fairly deluxe back in the day, and there aren't very many of them have survived, particularly not with the jewels on top. Another Richard Hudnut that I wanted to show is better known. This one is for, let me get my notes. This is also Jamais, which was, of course, a very famous perfume for the Hudnut, but in a different, totally different idea. This is silk screened on actual silk fabric, the beautiful femme on top, and she has an actual little tube attachment to hold the jeweled pin that was sold with this example. This isn't a replacement, but pin. Originally came out 1936 Christmas. It was trademarked in 1923. Jamais was trademarked in 1923. When you lift the lid, what you see is 6 items. And you know it's a little bit later because it has the multi-flags. This shows, Jamais being sold all around the world. So you have the idea of it being all around the world. This was also pictured in the PBQ summer of 1997. An example, but this is my example, so they're not very common. When you went to the movies in the 1920s, they used glass slides for advertising. That's a Richard Hudnut glass slide from that period. Dollying back, we're looking at all the Van Teen's incense burners and a few other companies that go along with Van Teen's. We're going from the museum part of the house now into the library part of the house. Follow me. This is my library with all the different display items. There's all your Yardley display, and we're moving over now. This is the Egyptian series, The Treasures of the Pharaohs by Arden. I have all of those. One of the few things in that I wanted to have every one because it's Egyptian. Moving down, you know, every little nook and cranny has a space for something. We have filled it, as you have seen. Computer is on, showing my database. Up again, this is along one of the edges. This shows all the boys' perfume bottles. This is a rather interesting display I wanted to give a little more words to because it's kind of a unique story. The bottles that are shown along the upper shelf here, there are what, 3, 6, 8, 9, 10 of them. And this was a photograph that was a layout that was done for the Traditional Homes magazine. They came to my house and they did a picture of my bottles. And this particular picture appeared in their magazine. And people liked it so well that a wallpaper company in Canada pirated the photograph, there's no other word for it, and made this particular wall border using the photograph from Traditional Home, my bottles, which I think is kind of fun in a way. It may not be quite legal and, you know, whatever, but it turned out rather well. Moving over, you know, I use the walls to display my point of purchase, various points of purchase signs, and calendars and postcards, in other words, the ephemera. And that displays very nicely on the wall. There's Palmer's White Rose, Mavis's, The Line of Mavis by Frederick Packer, fabulous, fabulous artwork. This is a piece of original artwork for a perfume that was never launched. Again, another one of the fans holding samples. These are very high-end bottles here. This little row of Mayorga, Marquis de la Lorza, and other items like that. Okay, the top of this is a bookcase is different point of purchase signs, factice, samples, things that went with. Across on the other side, early American at the very tip top, moving down through, again, more point of purchase signs and all your various piles and piles of paper documenting perfumes. There's one of the filing cabinets. I have 2 filing cabinets full of perfume history, alphabetical by perfume name. Again, different book section, mostly roughly by type. Okay, this is the other side of the doorway showing various points of purchase signs. I do love those. They're very, actually pretty hard to come by. And then down into, now this is everything is alphabetical or by year, Monson and Bear catalogs, for example, or Memoir des Perfumes, American perfumers by year, going on down to the floor. Now, again, a cabinet, this is all the histories. This particular shelf you're seeing right there is the ephemera, all in albums in plastic sleeves. Again, okay, this is the catalogs, perfume company catalogs in the white albums. Again, different books, and roughly I know where everything is. It's just a question of actuating my mind. Now we're into the bathroom. The downstairs bathroom, and it's going to show you a way of displaying powders. Powders I collect because they are beautiful. I collect because they have beautiful ladies on top, and furthermore, they have great information on the back of the powder boxes. Labels on the far side of the wall, perfume labels. This particular example is done by my father-in-law. It's an Isabey perfume ad from the 1920s. The arpege, that's the store light display sign, and we have filled it all with arpege. Bon Bon. Moving to the other side, another famous, okay, this is the Jovan series, Sculptura. It wasn't a very popular in its day, but boy, the aftermarket has been pretty hot for that little bottle. Again, more Lanvin, the lineup in front of a mirror. Now we're moving along the wall, showing some Richard Hudnut from the 1920s. These are store display signs. A Colgate store display sign. And then moving over to the giant display sign, which is coming up now, not this one. This is again Hudnut 1920s. Okay, here we are. This is the Hudnut RSVP display sign. When I ordered it, I had no idea how big it was, and when it arrived, I was struck dumb. But I found a way to display it. Now we're leaving the downstairs bathroom, and we're going to the first floor to see the rest of the collection. Going up the stairs. Going upstairs to the bathroom on the first floor, the powder room. This is over the commode. This is assorted items going together, like the three powders and a perfume, for example. Then over the tub, in the window, this is junk, absolute junk, but it looks nice against the light, but I have no qualms with it destroying it. The light destroys it. Okay, another little shelf. This is different swans. This is the swans bathroom. Moving over to this side, we look at store display, again swans, Vanderbilt, Gloria Vanderbilt, more swans. Another bathroom on this floor is the main bathroom. This is over our tub, looking out in the backyard. And then over the tub, this is why we bought the house. When we walked in here and I saw that shelf, I said, I gotta have the house because it's perfect for factices, as it is. You see all the factices. Every time I take a bath, I look at my factices and admire them. A close-up of the shelves over the tub. On the top shelf, here we see Black Glass, Prince Machiavelli, Cody Trey, Baja, and then on the very tip shelf we see the store display for Richard Hudnut, all in plaster, and then of course the dummy for L'air du Temps. This is a view of a store display item for the Luxor Company, sitting on a stickly stand made by Craig Farnsworth over a full powder dish. Then we're going into the bedroom. This is, I call my Victorian bedroom. Shows a lot of different Victorian items. We're going around and looking at the top of the cherry dresser, and we're a little bit going to look inside the cherry dresser. We're going to have a close-up here in a minute of the cherry dresser. Okay, here's all your cranberry glass, beautiful cranberry glass, Victorian items. Now we're getting into the chest. Here, this is a way of displaying perfume bottles flat so you can look at the labels very easily and can document them. This is an American drawer. You can see all the labels quite easily when you pull open the drawer. Again, this is the boxed area. So this is various boxes extending throughout time. And then the bottom drawer on the far right is Colgate mostly at the top there. This is what I call my Victorian room. And of course, a lot of cranberry glass, colored glass, antique glass. And we're going to talk about one that isn't a cranberry glass example here. This is kind of an interesting bottle. This is 11 inches tall. I believe this is called Gothic Revival style. And you can see it would kind of mimic the spires of a Gothic church. And they oftentimes set in metal frame stands, of which this does not have one. But at any rate, this dates to about 1830, 1840 French. If it were it's also referenced as William IV style, but from that time period, and a very unusual example. Now we're moving over to another vitrine or case. This is a maple case. On top is a Tarrant set in plush. On the other side is a Victorian set with the marble, and then a Parian doll, which has nothing to do with perfumes. Now we're looking down. These are some of the Terre de Rice items in here. There's a Terre de Rice bottle there, and then we're going down, powder, to the silver overlay perfumes, and more Terre de Rice. On the bottom shelf, again, more Terre de Rice. Vanity in the master bedroom, and there we see a lot of different perfumes set out on trays with lamps, Steuben item, Orine, various. Okay, now going down to the floor. This is a store display. She's in porcelain and she's English, about 1870 or so. Now we're going up and looking at other items, not perfumes, but here we have a Van Teen's lady holding a replacement urn in her hands. Now we're moving over to the lawyer's bookcase that holds all the different boxed perfumes. This particular case is an old lawyer's library case, and it works just perfectly for boxed perfumes. These are the perfumes that are usually a singular example in the collection. In other words, they have no brothers and sisters, or they're very high value. So this is how they end up in this particular room in my bedroom. And I'm going to tell you about 2 or 3 of them now in a minute. We're scanning along and looking at all the different wonderful figurals that there are here on top of the case. This particular company is the Petiot Company, and it came out of Lyon, France, not Paris, France, Lyon. It had a single perfume, and the name of the single perfume was Florissima, meaning floral beyond all belief. The box is fairly drab from the outside, but when you open it up, you see the fabulous, fabulous label inside. There's the nude. It's sealed. It has the original perfume in it, which always makes a bottle look more interesting, commercial perfumes. This came out about 1920. Talk about a drab box. This is the Perfume Elite Company, but wait, it has so wonderful inside, I think. The name of the perfume is King's Rose. It's in German, of course, but you'll see inside it's lined in all the silk with all the roses, and it's mint. It has the little membrane around the top and the little sealed ribbon, and this is again for the Elite Company of Germany from about 1920. This particular perfume is done by François Girard, and it's called Nuit de Gala, which is, it's a nice little yellow plush box with gilding. It's not so great. But when you open it up, oh, what's this? It comes in a brocade bag. The brocade bag, you hold your mouth right, has a mirror in the top. Then you take it out, and it has an expansion accordion, and inside is the perfume, again, Nuit de Gala, François Girard. This is all pretty neat, yeah, about 1952. But the thing that makes this neat is something that you cannot very easily see in the very bottom of the bag is a silhouette of a man. The bottom of the bag is the silhouette of a man in a top hat wearing a monocle and showing his cane. That's Charlie Chaplin. This particular perfume presentation was launched in 1952 at the premiere of Charlie Chaplin's movie called Limelight. This is the top of the maple dresser. We have a few perfumes, a few powders, and one of my high-end Corday ladies. Moving along, we're looking over to the other side where there is a display of purses on the wall, and then down below Avantines. Before you go, last stop on the trip is going to be to the living room where there are, gee whiz, more perfume bottles to see. Going down the hall to the living room, this case has at the very top the Bardin Company, Bardin Frere. They had huge porcelains, old Paris porcelains. Some held perfumes and some held other kinds of tonics and liquors. The two here on the right are the perfumes. Going down the case, we have other items, of course, and then on this one shelf we have the Model Perfume Company, and we have also the German vanity tray, and also a Versace head. Now we're looking over at the other side. This is the other side that does also have some perfumes on the lower shelf here. These are all the chimney perfumes, is what I call them, chimeneas, and also perfume bottles. These are all porcelain, Old Paris, Jacques Petit also as well. JP is the mark on that. Now we're moving on to the table, which is one of the last items of this tour, and the Grossmith's bottle for Sang Hang, done by Royal Doulton. We're coming now to the end of the perfume tour of the Helen Farnsworth perfume bottle collection. And it's been such a delight to have you here. And before we go, I wanted to add one little thing. None of this would have been possible without my husband, Craig Farnsworth, who is the photographer and a grand worker on the computer. Furthermore, I wanted to add one other little note. I'm wearing a perfume. I am wearing Versace's perfume, Versus, and I am wearing my Anne Klein shirt, which I just love because it's got a lion on it. Now we're going to look at the Hudnut display lamp.